On the first day of school, Ai arrives late at school and accidentally bumps into a boy and falls onto the ground, hurting her knee. When she enters the classroom, the homeroom teacher scolds her harshly. Meanwhile, Na Deng, the top student from a wealthy family, arrives late as well, but he does not scold him. The unfairness sinks deep into Ai's heart, but she stays silent. At noon, Ai notices a 50,000 yuan note lying under her desk. She looks around carefully, and no one is there, so she reaches for the money. Just then, the rich boy enters the classroom. Panicking, she quickly stuffs the money into her pocket and pretends to focus on her homework. Soon after, a girl named Hana enters the classroom with her friend Sohee, smiling confidently as usual. Hana opens her wallet and loudly announces that she has lost 50,000 yuan in the classroom. As she speaks, her eyes remain fixed on Ai. At that moment, Ai's anxiety becomes impossible to hide. Her lips tremble and her palm inside her pocket is soaked with sweat. The classmates begin to notice her panic, and their cold stares feel like they are piercing her fragile self-esteem. The atmosphere grows tense, and Ai wishes she could disappear. Suddenly, Hana laughs and says there is nothing to be done, claiming she will just think of it as helping a poor person. Only then does it become clear that this is a cruel prank. Hana has deliberately thrown the money under Ai's desk and secretly filmed her picking it up. Afterwards, Ai blames herself endlessly. With that amount, she and her sister could survive a few more hungry nights. Their father left them alone to struggle in the city. Ai works part-time at a convenience store after school, but her salary barely covers their tuition. Every day, she brings home her free school lunch as dinner for both of them. Just the day before, Ai finally earned 50,000 yuan from her part-time job. She planned to buy food and a new pair of socks. However, a sudden gust of wind blew the money away. She ran after it desperately, until she fell and realized she had reached an abandoned amusement park. Carefully, she walked inside and found the money lying on the ground. She smiled with relief and reached out, but at that point, the money was snatched away by a mysterious 8-foot-tall magician named Li Yule. Terrified, she screamed and ran back home. Her sister Yunyi notices the blood on Ai's knee and asks what happened. She avoids answering and instead worries about how she will manage without socks the next day. She tries to prepare dinner but opens the fridge to find it empty. Yunyi gently comforts her, saying she ate well at school and is not hungry at all. Ai knows her sister is lying to ease her burden, so she only smiles and pats her head. At that moment, her hand touches something hard in her pocket. When she pulls it out, she discovers an invitation to the amusement park. The next day, Ai is working at the convenience store as usual. While cleaning the table, she picks up a leftover burger and tries to eat it. But the store owner, Dusik, watches her and asks her to dispose of the leftover food properly. When her shift ends, Dusik unexpectedly gives her some food that is about to expire. It turns out he has noticed her hunger all along. Even if he never says it openly, Dusik offers his help in a way that does not wound Ai's pride. For the first time, she feels genuine kindness from a stranger. After hesitating for a moment, she gathers her courage and asks him for a favor. She explains that the landlord's wife came to her home the night before, demanding overdue rent. She has already fallen behind for 2 months, and if she cannot pay soon, she and her sister will be thrown out. Ai emotionally tells him that her father left them alone after his bankruptcy, leaving her and her sister to rely only on each other. Dusik asks if any adults can take responsibility for them. Ai shakes her head. At that point, sympathy appears on his face. However, she realizes how unreasonable her request sounds, so she apologizes and is about to leave when Dusik stops her and offers to lend her 300,000 yuan. He explains that this is not official employee support, but help from one adult to a child. Ai is so moved that tears fill her eyes. This is the first time she truly understands the weight of the word adult. She silently vows to become someone like that in the future. However, in the very next moment, her world collapses. When Dusik suddenly crosses the line, Ai desperately tries to push him away. In fear, she prays silently for someone to save her. Then, in the next second, Li Yule, the magician we saw earlier in the abandoned amusement park, appears. With ease, he restrains Dusik with one hand and tells him to leave, or there will be bad consequences for him. The next morning, Ai returns to the convenience store in a daze, only to find it temporarily closed. The 300,000 yuan from the previous night has been stuffed through the door. Confused and uneasy, she heads to the abandoned amusement park to look for Lee Yul and asks him where Dusik has gone. Lee Yul casually replies that he does not know and jokingly suggests the man may have already been reincarnated as a dog. His ridiculous answers leave Yi speechless. Feeling mentally exhausted, she gives up trying to communicate and turns to leave. At that point, a blue butterfly emerges from her necklace, and the abandoned amusement park suddenly lights up once again. The two of them sit together on the Ferris wheel. Fireworks blooming outside the window feel like a fairy tale world. The next day at school, Yi secretly packs her free lunch as usual. She quickly transfers the food into a lunchbox she prepared earlier, hoping to take it home. She does not notice Hana and Sohee walking behind her. One of them accidentally knocks the lunchbox over, scattering food across the floor, leaving Yi frozen. Hana looks at her pitiful expression, mutters a quiet apology, and quickly walks away. After they leave, Yi immediately squats down and puts the food back into the box. In the classroom, the rich boy named Na Deyoung casually asks what kind of tutoring class she attends to score so high on her math test. Yi does not answer. She does not know how to explain a life where survival and studying happen at the same time. During this, we learn that Na Deyoung likes Yi but hesitates to tell her his feelings. At that moment, Yi lays her head down on the desk and closes her eyes. Na Deyoung watches her. When she opens her eyes, Na Deyoung quickly pushes his workbook over, pretending to have a question to avoid embarrassment. But the look in Na Deyoung's eyes still reveals his feelings. Determined to take the initiative, he plans carefully. For the first time, he even buys milk tea and memorizes romantic lines from the internet. However, when the moment comes, his nervousness leaves him unable to say a single word. The next day, he notices that a practice book he once threw away is on Yi's table without the book cover. He comes up with another plan. He deliberately places the newest edition of the book between their desks to catch her attention. As expected, Yi speaks to him first, politely asking if she can borrow the book, but Na Deyoung refuses coldly, saying he needs to finish it today. Just as Yi feels disappointed, he offers a second option he has already prepared. He suggests going to the library to study for the mock exam, promising she can read any book she wants if she goes with him. Yi takes the bait and immediately agrees. Although Na Deyoung appears calm, his heart races the entire way. After arriving at the library, Yi immerses herself fully in studying, while Na Deyoung, who claims to be studying, spends hours distracted stealing glances at her instead. In the evening, rain begins to fall. At that point, Na Deyoung takes out the umbrella he prepared in advance and holds it over both of them. The atmosphere beneath the umbrella feels delicate and intimate. Acting on impulse, he confesses that he wants to study hard and grow together with her every day. Although Yi feels a faint affection for him, reality weighs heavily on her, and she gently refuses. Na Deyoung forces a smile, says he was joking, and walks her to the car. He drives off, leaving her alone in the rain. However, only a few steps later, he stops, gets out, and presses the umbrella into her hand before leaving again. The next day, Hana tells Na Deyoung that Yi secretly meets the mysterious magician at the abandoned amusement park every day and may even be supported by someone else. Hearing this, Na Deyoung becomes angry and confused. That night, without fully understanding why, he follows Yi to the amusement park. The rumors begin a few days earlier, when Hana and Sohee visit the abandoned park to film content. The place looks just as broken and eerie as the rumors claim. Deep inside, a brightly colored parrot is locked away, adding to the strange atmosphere. Feeling her trip is not wasted, Hana records herself talking to the parrot. Lee Yul notices her rude behavior and feels irritated. However, Hana shows no embarrassment and instead mocks him, claiming she has come to witness the legendary magic. Lee Yul almost laughs at her arrogance. Afterwards, he decides to grant her wish. As Sohee excitedly starts filming, Lee Yul casually asks whether people's shadows always move with their bodies. Before Hana can dismiss the question, he lights a candle using a lighter with the candle's shadow, and the candle actually ignites, which surprises Hana. He then puts a sword into boiling water and takes the sword to the balloon's shadow, but the real balloon pops. Lee Yul then calmly moves closer to Hana's own shadow, and tension fills the air. Suddenly, Hana mentions Yi and Lee Yul stops. Without explaining, he shifts into a more aggressive stance, preparing to strike again. Suddenly, lightning flashes outside the window and all the candles and lights go out. The performance is forced to end. Before leaving, Lee Yul asks Hana to pass a message to Yi, saying that he will be waiting for her at the amusement park. However, after returning to school, Hana twists the truth and spreads vicious rumors, claiming that the strange man at the amusement park wants to make Ai his mistress and is urging her to visit him again. Hearing this, Ai rushes to the amusement park in anger and demands an explanation. Unexpectedly, Lee Yul calmly confesses that he likes her. This only fuels her frustration. Lee Yul suddenly grabs her phone, and when Ai wants to take back her phone, she accidentally hits the vase. Water in the vase slowly spreads across the table. As the paper on the table becomes wet, hidden words gradually appear. They are all messages Ai once sent to her mother, messages that never received a reply. Shocked, she cannot tell whether this is magic or an illusion. When she checks her phone, she finds that every message she sent has turned corrupted and unreadable. Meanwhile, Na Deung accidentally witnesses Lee Yul's confession and is deeply shaken. Influenced by Hana's rumors, he believes Ai is being taken advantage of for money. Convinced the magician must be manipulating her, he confronts Ai the next day and proposes a deal. He asks her to help him secure first place in an upcoming subject exam. Ai thinks she has misunderstood him, but later that night she overhears Yoonyi saying she wants to quit school to save money. At that point, Ai compromises. Na Deung gives 300,000 yuan under the table. As Ai hesitates and reaches for it, Hana suddenly appears. Instinctively, Ai pulls the money away and hides it. Her heart nearly stops, but Hana misunderstands the scene, assuming they are secretly dating under the table. With the exam approaching, Ai fulfills the agreement precisely. After the test, she returns to the amusement park and cries alone. Lee Yul appears and gently tells her he wants to show her something magical. Using a simple but sincere method, he starts the old merry-go-round. As Ai sits on it, the ride slowly comes back to life. At that moment, her sadness is washed away by pure joy. Even though the happiness feels sudden and unreal, it warms her heart. Suddenly, she returns to reality. Afterwards, she decides to seriously learn magic from Lee Yul. A few days later, the exam results are announced, and Na Deung takes first place as expected. He happily pays 200,000 yuan and proposes a new deal. Ai will continue helping with homework. Their uneasy cooperation slowly becomes smoother. With fewer money worries, Ai spends more time at the amusement park learning magic. Watching her smile brightly at Lee Yul, Na Deung feels as though he is handing his rival flowers himself. Unable to accept it, he goes to confront Lee Yul. However, the moment he arrives, Lee Yul does a magic trick and shows Na Deung his underwear, which confuses and embarrasses him. Lee Yul laughs and admits it was just a joke. Na Deung grows irritated, believing the man is nothing more than a fraud hiding in a ruined amusement park and deceiving an innocent girl. As he turns to leave, Lee Yul does another magic trick and sends Na Deung into a dark room surrounded by countless people moving stiffly, like puppets controlled by an unseen force. Suddenly, a beam of light appears ahead. Almost instinctively, everyone rushes toward it, as if chasing a preset goal. At that point, the ground beneath him disappears, and the feeling of weightlessness jolts him awake. He realizes it is all an illusion, but one that feels disturbingly real. Shaken, Na Deung demands to know what Lee Yul has done to him. Lee Yul calmly takes out a yellow paper and slips it behind a playing card. Annoyed, Na Deung warns him to stop using childish tricks. Just then, Lee Yul transforms the paper into a butterfly. Later, when Na Deung returns home, he tries to explain everything through science. However, even the most advanced VR games cannot compare to what he experienced at the amusement park. Afterwards, as he opens his school bag to do homework, he unexpectedly finds an invitation card to the amusement park inside. That day, Na Deung finally visits the park together with Ai. Sitting between the two of them, he carefully watches Lee Yul, determined to see how this strange man might deceive an innocent girl. Lee Yul prepares to perform, and Ai watches with excitement, while Na Deung remains expressionless. He barely dares to breathe, convinced that no matter how clever the trick is, it must rely on cheap illusion and showmanship. Soon, Lee Yul invites Na Deung to perform a magic trick himself. He tries, but the trick completely goes wrong, nearly burning his hand. Taking advantage of the moment, Na Deung asks Ai to help apply ointment. She firmly tells him that she will no longer help with the coming exams and promises to repay the money slowly in the future. Na Deung stops her and tells her not to mention the money again. This secret remains known only to the two of them. Unexpectedly, the next day, Ai is summoned to the homeroom teacher's office. It turns out that Mrs. Na has noticed her son's recent spending. Worse still, photos of a money exchange between the two students have appeared on the school forum. The teacher begins to suspect that Ai has been manipulating the top student for financial gain. Although the accusation is absurd, Ai cannot find the words to explain herself. Seeing her silence, the teacher asks her to call her parents to school. However, Ai has no parents to rely on. Her mother left long ago, and her father disappeared after bankruptcy. With nowhere else to go, she returns to the amusement park. Standing before the broken merry-go-round, Ai recalls her mother's words from childhood. If she ever got lost, she should wait there and her mother would come back for her. Now the ride stands silent and rusted. The child who once waited has grown up, but the person who promised to return never does. At that moment, Lee Yule appears and leads her to a letterbox. He tells her that if she writes a letter and places it inside, her words can reach anyone she misses. Remembering all the magic she has witnessed before, Ai feels her heart soften. That night, while returning home after buying groceries, Ai discovers that her father has finally come back home after months of disappearance. Believing things may finally change, she prepares a warm meal for him and encourages him to meet the school administration the next day. However, when she overhears him receiving another call about debt, she immediately understands. Just like before, he will not stay for long. Ai carefully puts all the money she once exchanged with Na-dong into an envelope, planning to return it to him the next day. She intends to repay everything slowly with her own earnings. However, the next morning, her father disappears once again. What is even more devastating is that he takes all the money from her bag before leaving. At that point, Ai is left with nothing, no savings and no parents to rely on. The homeroom teacher scolds her and warns her that he will suspend her from school. With no other choice, Ai finally tells the truth about the deal with Na-ding. Unexpectedly, the following day, the story completely changes. Na-deong is publicly praised by school leaders, who claim he has been secretly helping poor students out of kindness. The staged explanation behind the photos convinces the students below the stage. The teacher who knows the truth avoids Ai's eyes. From that moment on, the label of poor student is firmly placed on her. She feels the pity in everyone's gaze and wishes she could disappear. Clearly, she has sacrificed her grades for revenge, and the money Na-dong paid was not wasted. Still, to stay in school, she lowers her head and forces herself to endure it. She tells herself that letting go of pride is not the worst thing for someone poor. On stage, Na-dong does not defend himself and silently accepts the false praise. After the meeting, he finds Ai and tells her to scold him or even slap him if it makes her happy. He also offers to go to the school principal together and reveal the truth. However, Ai has already grown up through this farce. She knows that if she goes to the principal and says she is innocent, no one will believe her, so she accepts her fate. Afterwards, Ai goes to Lee Yule and tells him she can no longer learn magic. She needs to find another part-time job as soon as possible to survive. That night, she returns home and finds Uni missing. Panic sets in as she searches everywhere, calling teachers and classmates, but no one has any information. Her father answers the phone only to apologize. He tells her to take care of herself and her sister and wait for him. He says that when he arranges the money and pays his debt, he will come back. Ai completely breaks down. Just then, a classmate's parent calls her and tells her that Uni has come to their house and fallen asleep there. Only then does Ai finally breathe again. At that point, she realizes her sister is not just a responsibility, but the reason she continues to live and endure. Meanwhile, at the abandoned amusement park, Hana secretly breaks into Lee Yule's residence and installs a hidden camera, determined to uncover what really goes on between him and Ai. Suddenly, Lee Yule returns. Hana hurriedly grabs a prop and pretends to be innocent, though her fist tightens in fear. Lee Yule catches her hand and reveals it to be nothing more than a harmless magic tool. Finding nothing suspicious, he orders her to leave immediately, unaware that the hidden camera has already been planted. A few days later, Hana sneaks back to retrieve the camera. When she checks the footage, she is stunned. She secretly copies the video and later shows it to Ai, insisting she see the true face of the man she trusts. Na-deong and Ai hide in the reading room and open the USB drive. What appears on the screen is horrifying. The gentle, cheerful magician is shown fighting violently with another man. He even holds a knife and declares himself the real magician. The sound of a blade piercing flesh echoes through the video. Both are left speechless. After school, Ai goes straight to the abandoned amusement park to confront Lee Yule and ask what is really happening. When she reaches the park, she sees Lee Yule holding a sword and pointing it toward the children. She gets panicked, but then she sees Lee Yule is only showing the kids a magic performance. So her fear slowly fades. Afterwards, she quietly leaves the park, unaware that Hana is already planning another plan. Late at night, she sneaks back into the amusement park with a flashlight and finds a dried bloodstain. As she is taking pictures, she hears footsteps approaching. So she turns off the light and hides, but the parrot in the cage has already seen everything and begins to shout toward her hiding place. Lee Yule easily finds her, and she pretends to be innocent and claims she is there to learn magic, but the camera hidden on her body exposes her lie. Realizing she is caught, she openly admits she is searching for evidence and arrogantly shows him the video, trying to provoke fear. She even demands to know where the body is buried. Lee Yule finally loses control. As she keeps filming and threatening to upload everything online, his anger explodes. During the struggle for the camera, Hana violently knocks the parrot to the ground. The bird twitches a few times and goes lifeless. Hana realizes that she is now in danger. Lee Yule, overwhelmed by rage and pain, grabs Hana by the neck and lifts her off the ground until she can barely breathe. However, his expression is full of torment rather than hatred. What breaks him is not only the constant spying, but the injury to the parrot he treats like family. At that moment, his parrot starts flapping its wings, snapping him back to his senses. He releases Hana and turns to check his parrot. Seizing the opportunity, Hana escapes in panic and collapses just outside the gate, where she unexpectedly runs into Na Ding. Desperate to protect herself, Ha-Na immediately accuses Lee Yule of being a perverted killer who hides in the amusement park and targets lonely girls. She carefully leaves out her own provocations and presents herself as an innocent victim. Na Ding is left confused and unsure who to believe. Earlier that day, during an important exam, he suddenly suffered a severe headache and muscle cramps. His vision became blurred, forcing him to submit blank paper and leave early. When Na Ding returns home, his mother, Mrs. Na, scolds him harshly. He explains that he was in pain and nearly fainted, but she coldly replies that fainting in the exam room would have at least given him a chance to retake the test. Instead, turning in blank paper only brings shame. She finds the magic prop he has been hiding and angrily throws it onto the floor. At this point, Na Ding's father, G-Man, steps in to smooth things over. He tells his son to rest if he feels unwell. Before going, he calmly reminds him that only by becoming a prosecutor in the future will he earn real respect. Those words finally push Na Ding to the breaking point. He realizes that since childhood, he has walked a path completely designed by his parents, never once imagining a future of his own. He asks his parents, in quiet despair, whether they only accept an excellent son and have no place for an ordinary but happy child. His parents stare at him as if he has lost his mind. In response, his father slaps him and warns that they will keep him under constant watch, never allowing him to do anything they consider useless. That night, Na Ding secretly goes to the abandoned amusement park. However, before he can find Lee Yule, a sharp pain strikes his head. When he wakes up later, he finds a magician's coat draped over him and yellow butterflies painted all around the ground. The next day at school, the homeroom teacher asks Yi about Lee Yule. He says that an elderly woman who was going home alone the previous night has been robbed. According to surveillance footage, the suspect appears to be an adult man dressed as a magician. He says that Hana voluntarily provided a video as testimony, and she claims that the magician is Yi's boyfriend. Hearing this, Yi firmly insists that Lee Yule could not be the criminal. But the homeroom teacher explains that there is another witness who also saw him. The witness describes a tall man in a magician's outfit. Yet due to heavy rain, the footage is too blurry to identify the face clearly. Afterwards, the police search for suspects within a 3-kilometer radius. Lee Yule becomes the prime suspect, especially after a short knife with his fingerprints is found near the amusement park, matching the weapon described by the witness. Just as the case seems to be solved, Lee Yule suddenly disappears under police surveillance. On the other hand, a new witness emerges, Do Sik, the convenience store owner. He claims he once gave Yi 300,000 won to support a poor student and presents himself as a responsible adult. He accuses Lee Yule of violence, saying that when Yi was bullied, Lee Yule appeared and used magic to make him disappear. In reality, he had been kicked down a slope, leaving him hospitalized for over 2 weeks and badly injured. Still, Do Sik loudly insists he is a good man who received no gratitude and declares that the robbery must have been done by the magician. Terrified, Ai trembles and keeps shaking her head, refusing to identify Lee Yule as the culprit. At that moment, Na-dong suddenly appears as a witness and claims he was with Lee Yule on the night of the crime. However, Hana shows the injuries around her neck to the police and says that Lee Yule is unstable and violent. With conflicting testimonies piling up, the case drags on. On the other hand, Ai's classmate Ha-yoon is also working part-time at Do-sik's convenience store. One evening, she secretly turns on her phone camera and slips some cash into her pocket. At that point, Do-sik suddenly returns and catches everything. He drags her into a back room and angrily scolds her, claiming he only hired her out of pity. Judging by how smoothly she took the money, he assumes this is not her first time and threatens to report her to the police. Terrified, Ha-yoon begs him not to call them and says he can punish her however he wants. Benefiting from the situation, Do-sik slowly approaches her and begins to touch her inappropriately. As he lowers his guard, Ha-yoon lets out a strange laugh and quickly grabs the phone she had hidden on the shelf. She now has clear evidence of him threatening and assaulting a minor. In her mind, adding another demand for money feels like a small price for her suffering. However, the next day, Ha-yoon's mother comes to the school in panic, saying her daughter never came home. She posts missing person notices around the neighborhood, but that night they are deliberately destroyed. Surveillance footage later shows a tall man dressed like a magician, though the poor lighting makes his face impossible to identify. Time passes, and nearly 2 months go by without answers. Afterwards, a woman jogging by a lake discovers something floating on the water. The police arrive and confirm it is a body that has been submerged for almost 2 months. DNA results identify the victim as Ha-yoon. Near the scene, officers also find her discarded ID card. When Ha-yoon's mother arrives at the station, she collapses in grief. Her daughter's body is so badly decomposed that her face is unrecognizable, and even if the killer is caught, nothing can bring her back. Soon, rumors spread among the students, and many begin to suspect that the murderer is the magician hiding in the abandoned amusement park. Ai refuses to believe that Lee Yule is the killer. Determined to learn the truth, she goes to the amusement park only to find it empty. On the ground, she discovers Lee Yule's notes, a detailed map of the stage mechanisms. As she follows the instructions and activates them, a hidden passage opens. She carefully walks down a narrow staircase and enters a surprisingly spacious basement, where Lee Yule is sitting silently against the wall. No matter how much Ai speaks to him, he says nothing. As she slowly approaches, she realizes he is crying. At that moment, she also notices his beloved parrot lying motionless on the floor. Meanwhile, the police have already surrounded the area and are closing in. When they come inside, they see Lee Yule on the stage dressed in a magician's outfit, calmly standing under the lights. He tries to prove to the stern officers that he is just an ordinary person. However, to the police, his behavior only seems more disturbing, and they move to arrest him immediately. Just then, Ai begs the police to let her speak to him. As she walks toward him, he finally smiles. For him, this moment carries deep meaning. No matter how many times he insists he is not a murderer, only this girl believes him. It reminds him of 10 years earlier when he escaped from a psychiatric hospital and everyone rejected him, except Ai, who quietly placed a bandage on him. That small kindness becomes the warmth that once saved him. At some point, soft white snow begins to fall over the stage. The two look at each other in silence. Lee Yule gently takes off his hat and places it on Ai's head. He tells her that if she speaks a certain sentence, her wish will come true. The police grow impatient and urge them to hurry. Just as Lee Yule is about to be taken away, Ai suddenly shouts the magic words he taught her. In an instant, Lee Yule vanishes. The police find no sign of escape, and from that day on, he disappears completely. Afterwards, while continuing the investigation, the police uncover a crucial video. It clearly records the murder of the missing girl, Ha-yoon. The truth finally comes out. Do-sik, the convenience store owner, is being blackmailed by Ha-yoon and refuses to pay her 1 million won. He lures her to the deserted amusement park, under the excuse of giving her money, brutally kills her, and dumps her body into a reservoir. To shift suspicion, he disguises himself as a magician and robs an old woman, then deliberately uses the same knife to frame Lee Yule. He even manipulates events so that Lee Yule's fingerprints end up on the weapon. Although he pretends to be innocent and acts as a witness, the recovered surveillance footage captures his face clearly. Strangely, the amusement park cameras, broken for years, start working on the very night of the murder, lighting up the killer's face. Only then does Ai realize the truth. The night she rode the Ferris wheel with Lee Yule and watched fireworks was never an illusion. It was real. In the end, Dusik is sentenced to life in prison behind iron bars. Meanwhile, Na Dang, unable to live under his parents' control any longer, chooses to leave school and walk away from the future they planned for him. After graduating from high school, Ai is accepted into Seoul National University. Her father also finds stable work and tells his daughters that he will soon come back home. From time to time, Ai still visits the amusement park. She thinks of the day she parted ways with the magician years ago, and wonders if the boy who claimed he was best at escaping is still somewhere in the world, asking others that same question with a quiet smile. Do you believe in magic? If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. This small gesture from you will motivate us, and we will bring more amazing content to entertain you. See you soon in the next video. Until then, take care.